and just finished his freshman year. He actually just texted me. He has his last finals tomorrow. He has one more final today, one more tomorrow, and he flies home on Monday.
Okay, awesome.
And just crazy to see these little twerps, you know.
Man.
And
well, the little twerps, I think, were winning whatever the junior race was. I think one of them or two of them maybe won both of them. I don't know, but
so like my kids have qualified for Iron Kid Nationals, and you know my mom's very athletic and talented and shit. You got it. So my kids, that same kid, when he was getting ready to go into high school, when I was at Align, we did a lot of races. I made every team. You know, if we were the HIT team in Virginia or the DPR team in Phoenix, you know, whatever. That's a huge uplift when you're deploying that much capital, and it's not like you're not running these projects based on contracts. You're running these projects based on relationships. Yeah. And as you learn, when you go through stress inoculation, which is what we were doing in a Spartan, you get to see people's real colors when they're under a little bit of, like, you know, they get a little bit more transparent. And I had trained with one particular team when Align did the West Jordan program. We did that project, and it was a semiconductor fabrication plant that basically, like, if you walked through there and you walked out, you had cancer, right? That was the worst building. Yeah. I mean, I was literally remediating as much as I could to keep another crew right behind it, you know, sure. and then right behind them was the crew that was taking off that much amount of roof every day that I could cover based on the limitations of the labor in the field. It was just a bananas program because I'm not sure if you heard how aggressive that one was, but when we had the drawings, most of the things that were on those drawings were not right. So I have rednecks racing bobcats in and out of that building, running into cross beats, and I'm like, and that's load bearing, so that's going to stay here, and it's going to become a piece of art. So let's build something else around it, you know. But you're getting really creative. And that team I had, because of that, the more pressure the program, the tighter the bond, you know. I would like to think that you know, all growth in those relationships come through that type of trauma, it seems. So that pressure, that project. And we trained hard as a team. I mean, normally every construction team had to read, you know, books. We'd book clubs and just to make sure we were all on the same sheet of music. But when we did that, I trained with these savages. There's a culture in Utah that doesn't involve a lot of alcohol, so it involves a lot of hiking and fitness. Yeah. And those savages out there that cheated life by never drinking or like having any fun, like they were fit.
Oh, I bet.
And I was on my heels. Okay. And I was doing I don't know how many races I'd done by then, but a lot. And I was like, I wonder if I could hang with these savages that are like raised in these hills. And I was like, all right. And I remember doing it, and my son, who's going to go into his freshman year, goes, "Hey, Dad, can I do this race with you?" And he's won a lot of things. You know, he's talented. I'm like, "Listen, Sid, I'm not even sure if I could hang with this group. Yeah. So you're welcome to like enter and do the race if you want to, but we're not stopping for you."
Where was it?
Yeah, the Nordic Ski Resort in Utah. Okay. Yeah. So you're really, I mean, you're running logs up and down the hills, and that's only a super, right? I mean, it was
classification
harder.
Of the Spartan race.
Yeah. So there was like a medium.
I remember okay.
We did a sprint, the super, and then there's the beast. And like I've done the beast in Montana, which is like, people are like, it's like dead people laying down on the course, like cords of wood that just gave up in life, right? Sure. And those are, some of those races are tough, and then the Nordic Ski Resort one was real tough. Yeah. Okay, so so my son goes, "Hey, listen, can I race?" And I said, "You're welcome to show up and be there, but we're not stopping or slowing down for you." And he's like, "Hey, I'll see what I can do." So he gets out ahead of us, and he's waiting for us at mile 2. Uh-oh. And I go like, "All right." And he goes like, "Hey, you know, I feel pretty good today. You mind if I just open it up and see what I could do?" I was like, "You got it." And I'm like, "We'll catch him at mile 10 when he's on the, his makeup will be smeared by then probably," type of thing. And I was like, he beat us by an hour. Jeez. And I was like, "I'm never racing with you ever again." And then we're done. And then I did my last Olympic distance triathlon a couple years ago, and both my sons did it with me then. Yeah. And those savages never trained at all with me, and I trained. Yeah. And my next older son beat me by an hour, and I was like, "I'm retired from that now.
I'm done." That's awesome.
I just needed to not. When we punished our kids growing up, there was no timeout.
Physical punishment.
Go get the stopwatch. Let's go do sprints. Drop and give me push-ups. Or
good.
So they're, you know, it's almost shameful how talented they are physically, because that means they were really shitty kids. But as you know, you've met them. So cheers. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Glad to be here. It's fun.
Man, it's like an honor. My first podcast I did was with you, actually. Now that I think about it.
I think it might have been during the pandemic, if I'm thinking right.
Yeah.
Was it? Because I think I was maybe at home. Maybe not.
No.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. But
look, man,
it was a while ago.
In many ways, then you were the genesis behind this, so I appreciate it.
You bet.
But I do, like, I make my team listen to your podcast.
Well,
I use your podcast as an example, and we talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
I use your podcast because the high likelihood of the accuracy, right? Because you could see the trends year over year. So if you look at the predictions, and I mean, I probably 3 or 4 times a year go back and listen to the predictions that you do for the year.
Well, good to check if we know what we're talking about.
I want to see if you're legit, right? But you're definitely, I don't know. You seem to be much more accurate than the average person. So,
well, thanks.
So let's start with maybe that. So why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you?
Yeah. David Liggitt, the founder of datacenterHawk. So datacenterHawk is a third-party platform in the data center space, really designed to help people get market information. And we were talking about it on the way here, been going since 2014. So started the platform in 2014.
The OGs of podcasts in this industry, right?
Well, yeah, and I think our podcast probably started, 3 or 4 years later. I think we got tired of writing articles, and we were like, you know what? We need to start communicating in an easier, consumable way.
So you're an enabler of making people like me dumber. They didn't want to read, so I could just listen.
Not at all, because I'm in that boat. But
no, honestly, it amplified.
Yeah.
Because it meant people that were driving 2 hours to work had something to listen to. They didn't have time to read it, but they could educate themselves on meaningful shit in the industry they're in. And I don't know if there was a lot of podcasts at the time.
Yeah, and I would say, I think too, our space, up until the last few years, I don't think was really comfortable doing this for different reasons. And so I think to be able to, sit down with people that are very smart, that are very tenured and ask questions on the business side, but also hear about them as a person, that's really fun for me to do. So it's like doing them is really fun. As you know, you get to sit down with some great people, ask questions.
Well, yours
they go certain ways, and sure.
Yours are like literally probably influencing the market in some ways because people are going to listen and be like, wow, fuck, if that's what he's saying, then they're not that you're the oracle or burning bush, but you are definitely someone that has validated a lot of bold ideas, right?
Sure.
And you've talked about them sometimes ahead of those people. But let me ask you this, because I've raced with you.
Yeah.
Ironically enough.
Sure.
But how did you even where are you originally from? Let's start with that.
Yeah. So grew up in Dallas. So from Dallas, spent most of my life there, and I got married in 2002. Spent about 5 years in.
Well, hold on, let's back up. So before you got married, you were born and raised in Dallas, like second, third, fourth generation shit, or
second generation. My parents, dad's from Northeast, mom from Dallas, and so
what was the industry that got him to Dallas?
My dad worked in the insurance industry for a long time. My mom was in education, and it's funny. My dad is a really good golfer out of college. So he played college golf at North Texas and Denton, and then he was a golf pro for a while. And I was so I have there's 4 boys in my family, so I'm the third of 4 boys. So I always tell my oldest brother it was really him that killed my dad's dream to play golf, because once he was born, he had to get a job and really start working. So
I so admire the relationship and dynamic that you have with your brothers. I too have a bunch of brothers, but I'm the youngest.
Okay, sure.
We have a similar dynamic.
Yeah, it's fun. A lot of teasing. I always laugh. It's like, it is a miracle we're alive for all the stuff that, went on when we were kids. But so from Dallas, and then, have lived there, really ever since.
Were you an athlete?
I played football and basketball growing up. My main sport was football. Still my favorite sport by far. I love football. It's really fun.
So hold on, what did you play?
I played receiver and then strong safety. And really, I would say my junior, senior year played defense. I like that a lot more. I like the hitting side than receiving the hit. I went to Highland Park.
So that's 6A?
At the time I think it is 6A now. At the time it was 4A, and then it's bumped to 5A, and then I think it might have just bumped to. You know what? I think it is 6A. Actually.
I think it is, because my kids would run into them at some wrestling tournaments, stuff like that. I think. Yeah. So
where did they go to school?
So Lake Travis.
Okay. Oh, sure.
But I moved my son it was he's a senior, so he graduates in like 3 weeks.
Yep.
I moved. We had to move him to Vandergrift High School, which is another 6A school. Yep. Vandergrift actually, I think, took second in state this year in 6A.
Football.
Yeah, they're a powerhouse of a school,
Sure.
but it's one of the kind of rivals, and it's a newer school.
Yeah.
And there was just Lake Travis is an interesting school.
I can imagine.
High school football schools are unbelievably crazy. Yeah. Like everything is. I had no idea. I mean, you see movies. There's Friday Night Lights, but I mean, if you're not from around here,
you're growing up. You experience.
That's not real. Yeah. You're like, there's no way that's real. And you're like, oh my God, they probably had buried hookers back there on that field too. I mean, you have no idea what they've done.
Yeah.
But it was the greatest thing we did. We moved him to a better school. Yeah. A great wrestling. I mean, they're both top 10 in the state and 6A in wrestling every year. Awesome. They're great schools. Cool. So but he was on the Texas national team. So he collided with all those rich white boys up in Dallas too all the time, So listen, football, all the way high school, and then what do you do?
Yep, through high school, and then and actually my senior year of high school, I had a pretty bad leg break.
In a game?
Actually, it was in a scrimmage before the season started.
You missed your senior year?
I did. Actually, yes, for the most part. But it was a great, looking back, I mean, I learned a ton through that.
So what did you learn?
I think a lot of grit, just like kind of working yourself back out of those, situations. And a lot of people have health issues that they have to figure out. But, that was a very acute, serious surgery, all that stuff. And so I think that was part of it.
Are you good now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're still out doing Spartans and stuff. Are you still doing Spartans?
I have not done any Spartans since the one that we did. But I've done some. Yeah. So
that wasn't a real race. That was like a catered workout where they have T-shirts.
That was. Yes. It was like however long it took, under an hour. But I think, so that was one thing I learned. The other thing is, and I had made... I mean, I love sports so much that they were almost like idols. And I think there's probably a lot of high school kids that could say, and even, it's older people that could say that they're those things. So I think it was a very good growth opportunity for me to go, hey, this has been amazing. I love being part of this, but I wasn't able to participate like I wanted to. So I could either have a crappy attitude or I could either continue to try to encourage people and play the role that I was given in that season.
Good for you, man.
So, and again, that was a long time ago, but it was when I look back and think about things that have been impactful from a life standpoint, that certainly was one of them.
There's a couple ways, like you were saying, to look at it, because it's a decision, but I don't know if that's a situation in which it develops character. I think that's the situation that reveals it.
Yeah, sure.
Right, because you had to instantly turn your mind into how to making the positive out of things. And I guess that probably transcends into everything else you're doing.
I mean, there's, if you think about life, it's some of the stuff I'm doing with we have 2 boys and, with our kids, I'm going, hey, I almost want opportunities for them that they don't get what they want, that they have to struggle. Because what I know is that those things will happen down the road and they're going to have to work through that at some point. And if I can be with them along that journey to help them think through it, encourage them, challenge them. I'm like, that's the role we get to play as parents,
What's the courage of leadership, they say, right? So there was and I'm going to mess this up, but it's hard men.
Oh, yeah.
Make easy times.
I know where you're going.
Easy times make weak men. Weak men make hard times, right? So that's why people typically say it's cyclical, it goes every other generation because you have those that struggle and that conflict makes them more resilient and the grit and the chip on the shoulder sounds like you had. And then those that just, it came real easy to them, they don't know how to struggle.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
I've actually learned that in this industry I have elites, people that on a piece of paper, they could not have been to a better school. They could not have had more of everything. And they went deep, right? And then I'd watch the ones that went to junior college for 2 years and night school, and they had to pay their own way. So it took 8 years. And I'm like, those people show up early, stay late, volunteer to do the hardest things because they learned that the solution for anything and everything was always just to work harder.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So that grit is what got them. When you graduated, where did you end up going?
I went to Baylor University in Waco. So, I got to drive through there on the way to here, which was fun to see how much
What years were you there for?
98 to 2002. So, and we were talking about how much it's changed. So, you know, I think most people go back to their college campus and are like, oh my gosh, it's changed so much. But Baylor has totally changed. When, you know, I remember when I was in school, like they would give football tickets away, you know, because the team was,
now.
Oh yes. Just not, they weren't good then. And now they've built this, you know, right up 35. It's awesome.
It's awesome. Are you, I mean, you got to be really proud of that.
Though, I am.
You're not mad. All right. So, yeah, Baylor is something special now, right?
They've done a really good job. And, you know, their football team, basketball team, which are, you know, I would say these sports that probably get the most attention. You know, they're certainly in the mix.
Are they smoking UT all the time now?
A lot more. Well, you know.
Is that kind of the thing? You're from Dallas?
Yeah. I mean, more than I would say whenever we watch Baylor football, I always say if, and this probably offends some of the people watching, but I always say that a UT, A&M, or OU loss is almost equivalent to a Baylor win. Just because when I was in school, I mean, they killed Baylor. Oh my gosh, 70-3, you know, 56-0. There was just no mercy.
I think that you got to let it out. You got to hate them.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way to get through it. So
anyway, it's been fun. It's been fun over the last however many years to watch that. We, you know, in our office, and gosh, just Dallas is so full of, you know, people from Big 12 schools and all that stuff. So there's a lot of fun banter. I'm sure there's not fun banter that goes on, but we try to keep it light and fun.
No, man, you're supposed to trade paint. We're talking about
that's right.
Went to Baylor. You guys are getting smoked, and now you guys have like Heisman Trophy winners.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
What about when you graduated? What do you study?
I was a communications major. It's funny. I was a business major for the first 2 years of college and kind of told myself, like, I will not go into the business world. Like, I am just not doing that. I mean, I've kind of got an entrepreneurial spirit, but I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to the finance world. I'm not doing this, that.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I did basically the last 2 years just communications, and then graduated 4 years. My wife was in nursing school, and the way Baylor does it, you spend 2 years in Waco and 2 years in Dallas if you're studying to be a nurse.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, and so I would say that the reason I graduated in 4 years is because that she was graduating in 4 years. So I got real serious about my studying once I realized that, you know, what her timeline was. So.
Oh, wow. All right. And then is she a nurse still?
She doesn't practice anymore, but out of college, probably spent 7 or 8 years, you know, in the hospital or in you know, working with doctors' offices in the hospital. She did like recovery room stuff.
She's got a bigger skill set than a typical mom when her kids fall down and get hurt.
Yeah. I always say we are your work.
Yeah.
With
keeping her proficient.
Yes,
yeah, you're welcome.
House. Yes.
Should send her an invoice.
True.
When you came out with communications, how did you, this is the really exciting part that I'll probably scratch the pen a little bit more because I'm like, how the hell did you go from all of that? And I mean, all that makes sense. I could, you know, but how did you end up to where, you know, you were at this another level of knowledge in the industry?
Well, actually, I'm thinking about this, you know, coming out of the communication, like there were a couple of classes in college that after taking them, you know, I've kind of come out and said, I think there's two classes every kid should take if they go through school. One is a one on communication, class on communication, like interpersonal communication. And I think about this from a work perspective. And the other thing I would say is personal finance. Those two things, if you could train up our younger generation to do those two things better, you know, I always think our society we would not be in some of maybe the scenarios that we're in, but the communication thing, you know, I just think about like our teams, what we do from a business perspective. I mean, you know, you can't do what you were talking about doing earlier in Utah without great communication, you know, and so you have to have team members that know, you know, can either know how to do it or can grow into being great communicators. Doesn't matter if they're, you know, kind of tip of the spear facing the market or they're internal in the company. You don't do that right, you got bigger problems. And so anyway, out of college, I spent 5 years working for a sports camp. What's
that all about?
Yeah, in college, while I was in college during the summers, I would go up. There's a camp in Missouri that I would go up and work at with 13 to 18 year olds.
Is it a football camp?
It was football, baseball, basketball, soccer, tennis, and basically they would take, you know, D1, D2 athletes as counselors.
Were you playing? Did you play Baylor?
No,
okay.
I did not. Intramural star. Loved it.
Gotcha.
No, but I really did love intramurals. I'm still love to compete. And so so I did that in the summer, and then out of college, they basically just, there was an opportunity to go work there full time. And so my wife, we got married, moved up there and did it for 5 years. We lived in Missouri, had a great experience, loved every minute of it. Working, it was really fun to get to just pour into kids and get to watch some of these kids grow. And actually some of the, back then I was 23, 24, and some of those kids were probably 13, 14, 15. And so, you fast forward 20 years and some of those kids are leading companies and leading ministries across the U.S., just doing really great stuff. Yeah. And so it's always fun to sit back and go, think about like, hey, I got to be a very small part to encourage and challenge and push, some of the kids that are out there today. They're not kids anymore. They're doing great things. So we had a great time doing it.
That's awesome.
It was a great experience.
What made you stop?
Were you
married?
Yeah, married. Okay. Yeah, married the whole time. We got excited about being closer to our family. We're, kind of all from Dallas. And we had just had our first, our son, Grayson, he's now 16. He was 6 months at the time. And we decided that we wanted to be back closer to home. I had also had, always had a real desire, entrepreneurial spirit to do something business-wise. And so it was really those things that were like, it made sense to come back to Dallas and do that.
So when you came back, was there an industry that you were targeting?
No, not really.
Did you stumble into data centers?
Yeah. And this is actually how I did stumble in data centers. So I started working at CBRE, real estate company.
So that you didn't want to be a business major because you didn't want to work for business. So you became a communications guy, and then you went to work for business.
That's right. Doesn't that make sense?
I'm just tracking. Listen, man, I get it. So, but that makes a ton of sense because I'm like, you have to. That's awesome. Yeah. Tell me the story because I'll have questions at the end.
No, yeah. So I had a number of friends, college friends, that had spent time in that industry. It was 2007, so things were very. There was a lot of good things happening. The economy. This was right before everything.
Right before the collapse of the secondary lending market. Yeah,
and that's when I started. So
perfect time.
Yeah, awesome. So anyway, started with CBRE in Dallas at the time, and it was basically working for a year on the office side of things, like on the office brokerage side.
Okay, so that's what you started off because you have analysts. They have such a rich bench of shit there, right?
Yeah.
So
and so I started on the brokerage side, and
really,
it just jumped right in, and then like probably a year later, started working on data centers blindly.
So 2007 in Dallas. And was that after like they merged with
Trammell Crow?
Okay.
So actually,
what was Staubach? Was that JLL? So CBRE was Trammell Crow.
Yeah.
That's right.
So CBRE in early 2007 bought Trammell Crow, and so for those that are watching, Trammell Crow, big real estate company, Dallas focused. From Trammell Crow from Dallas, and then but CB bought Crow in 2007. And so when I started, and those companies were really merging at the time. Some would say Trammell Crow bought CB, but the two basically merged together, and I got kind of dumped right in the middle of that.
And at that time, and now, how long were you there for?
I was at CBRE for 7 years.
And in 2007, I'm trying to think of who the monsters in the area. It had to have been digital, right? It's probably
it was really Digital Equinix. Digital became public in 2004, so they were really just starting to. They certainly had a portfolio, but it was starting, in my opinion, to really start to mature. That was just when turnkey data centers were, 1.2 megawatts. And, 2 in at the electrical in plus 1.
Any color you want, as long as it's black.
That's right.
Right. So, that was pioneering in many ways.
100%.
How they created that fixed form factor, whatever you want to call it now. But they're like, look, they learned how to homogenize the ecosystem of the industry.
Yes.
By trying to not have to customize or create mechanical electrical infrastructure to support it. They just really built the block around what they could get off the shelf. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And people don't realize that.
Not at all. And, I always tell people, I feel like I had looking back, I feel like I had a front row seat of,
you did.
The change, the evolution, the growth of our space. And, in some ways I still feel like I'm front row seat. It really hasn't changed, because the the market continues to shift. It continues to change.
It's iterative though, compared to that. I mean, it's not saying, I don't think we're at a plateau again. I think we're doing that, but I do think there was a time, and that's why I'm trying to dive back in and figure out when did I see, like, rather the genesis in general of the industry, but when did I see this huge uptick? And I'm like, I would say it's probably right around that same time is when we saw that huge spike. And then that's when it became more prevalent. And that's when wholesale became prevalent.
Yeah, and I think, another thing that you brought up just with 2007, 2008, I would say I think the data center industry is where it is today because of the issues in 2008, 2009 with the mortgage, crisis. And really what that did to the economy. You had companies, historically banks, technology companies said, we own this stuff. We're always going to own it. Like, you can't tell me what I need to build or how to build it because we do it. And all of a sudden, they didn't have the money to spend anymore on their infrastructure, and they needed to shift those expenses to a lease. And the Digitals of the world, the Cyrus Ones, the QTSs, these companies were starting to form. So they really became the place.
Stoked the fire.
Yes, that these companies could grow. And all they had to do, they had to convince the C-level that you could actually lease a pod,
a CapEx model,
yes, and it would be electrically and mechanically its own thing in a building with others. And once that was done, that was, in my opinion, kind of the gas to the fire of the wholesale market. And
it's interesting. Wow, I guess I'm an idiot, right? It's like a man talking to his puppy, right? So I'm sitting here thinking, I thought it was the adoption rate of technology is emerging, IoT or EIIO. Sure. But that actually makes way more sense because we individually don't have the ability to move the needle that fast.
Yeah.
But those collectives, those aggregations of demands, you have magnitudes of difference with 5 companies.
Yep.
That are like outsourcing all their IT compute or taking what was probably a DR model into a full production.
Yeah.
I never thought that that's probably what tipped it.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
And there were other, I'm sure there were other things, but when I look at, and I came at it from a real estate perspective. I mean, I always think it's interesting to hear how people entered our space, entered this industry because it's so different. Not a lot of people did it intentionally. They were working here. I mean, I got into commercial real estate at CBRE to work on office buildings, but found this very interesting, very capital intensive growth space that has not stopped growing.
How did you see it though? Did you recognize that instantly when you went there? Where you said you started on Office, like TI, right? Yeah. So then how did you get exposed to the data?
I just, I joined a team that was starting to focus on helping. Well, that's the truth. At the time, CBRE was pushing their people to be experts in different areas.
Verticals, yeah.
Yeah, and so what, at the time, they were wanting the brokerage teams to focus on like a specific sub-market, geography.
That's smart.
If you're going to focus on uptown, you're downtown, this, that. We ended up focusing on data centers and not a specific sub-market. Kind of, I guess, Dallas. But the reality is, if you want to understand, if you want to help people with their data center geographic selection, what type of product they should go into, you've got to know Chicago. You've got to know Phoenix. You have to have that kind of, in my opinion, national knowledge,
practice.
Yeah, to really do well, and to help customers that you're working with. And so I did not know at the time that like the space would be, this growth area or whatever. To me, it was just a way to differentiate my knowledge. I'm going like, hey, if I can do, I always remember I would be like, if I can walk through a lease, a turnkey data center lease, and go through the SLAs and negotiate all those, going through an office lease is like it feels great. Yeah. So
exactly,
just a way to differentiate.
So, man, to back up though, because this is really this transcends into a whole broader. I mean, you're a part of a massive apprenticeship. It sounds like, right? And CBRE at some levels, the quarterback said, "Hey, we're going to invest more focus on this."
Yep.
Because no one really understood, what the returns were in assets. They didn't even know how to define the asset class. So here you are, and CBRE, which I do believe, if I remember, that's why I was trying to think who was the practice leader in Dallas at the time. But I'm like, you guys intentionally and deliberately went out and sought experts in data centers. Like, and by the way, who was that? Was it like like the EYPs or Cisco's that sat down and said, hey, listen, this is what it really is. Because you guys were being also engaged by the enterprise, right? And that's how the brokers end up having a lot of the influence, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So walk us through that, because that's a whole mound where I know it exists. People see it exists, but they don't understand how it developed.
Yeah, these real estate companies, I mean, they're extremely influential because they have relationships with not just their customers, but the IT teams, the real estate teams, and so they're able to capture a lot of business. Not just from not just from the brokerage side, but also from the project management side. I mean, there's many different ways that a CBRE, a JLL, a Cushman, is going to provide services to customers. I think at the time, with so much capital going into the data center space, and at the time the rates were a lot higher, the leasing rates were a lot higher than they were, today. You would make more money working on a deal, a data center deal, than you would potentially like a really large office deal.
Because the total contract value would be way higher.
Yes.
Got you.
I mean, and so that was one of the things that was interesting to a lot of the brokers, I think, that got involved, but also
bigger nugget.
Yeah. It was just it was a differentiation. My thought was, this isn't going away. Like, I don't see any company that is going, let's depend less on technology, and you can do stuff in the cloud and all these different things. But the reality is, the exponential growth of our space was then and is now pushing us to places we've never been. And I felt like that was a good thing to latch onto and start to learn, and Dallas is really unique too, because there's a lot of industry leaders in that city randomly, not randomly, but it's just evolved that way.
Major city.
Yeah. So you have some CEOs that are there. You have some regional hubs for publicly traded companies that have a really big presence there. So it was a great place to learn, a great place to grow. And I think I'll say this about the brokerage space in the data center industry. I think they provide tremendous value to people that are trying to figure out, IT groups that are trying to figure out, how do we put our IT infrastructure in a place or solution that will serve us not just today, but down the road. Some of the groups, the IT groups that do this, they've done this once or twice in their career. And those brokers, many of them have done it many more times. And so I think just being able to utilize their expertise, not a lot of people know that a CBRE, a JLL, a Cushman, these companies can be very helpful in that process from like a brokerage side of things.
Yeah. I definitely think that if you're an enterprise end user, you're better served, because this is something you'll probably only do once or twice in your career, and these people are doing it 20 times a year, like you said. So the proficiency and the level of expertise, it's cyclical. Pendulums swing both ways. I remember there were times where the operators didn't find as much value
100%.
because
the
commodity bake-off.
Yeah, they don't want to pay the fees for that. Yeah,
well, hire me and I'll get your rate, your KW rate cut in half type of shit. And there was that time where I think it was the market was correcting itself.
Sure.
All right.
100%.
And when the market was correcting itself, it was already a little bit of a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And then you had people that were able to be like, look, let me profit on catching that sword as it's falling for you type of thing. And I remember at the time I was at Cyrus One and
that's right. How long were you at Cyrus One?
I want to say three years. Yeah.
Got it.
So maybe 2. Listen, I had been working with Cyrus One since the beginning of my career. I mean, when they had one data center in Houston, I was commissioning UPSs for them back when I first started my career, right? And I remember doing their very first project in Dallas, in the Dallas market at the TI campus. And Dennis Shive, Kenneth Wolverton were there, right? I mean, like that's how far back I've been working on those projects. Yeah. And I mean, guys like Laramie and I, we vacation with our families. Right? So like we grew up in this industry long before other of us were there. He was there before me. But I remember when he got there, I was like, I bet you I'll be there with you one day, and it was cool because I got to work with him. And, but I think that digital in the early days, the Genesis, I'm all over the place because I'm super excited about this stuff. Right. But I want to understand how CBRE raced to the front to become the preeminent broker that was able to get deeper into the abilities to impact the value of the client, because typically they were calling you guys to be like, look, I'm moving and I need to have this much square footage and I need to be in this market or I'm opening this office and I need that. So you're getting that because they have people that they're responsible. And they're like, by the way, we have to have this IT thing that comes with it. And we prefer to not have that. And the model was going from CapEx to OpEx at the time. So you guys were, seemed to be getting out in front of that little faster than the average bear. Obviously you and it's really an oligopoly. There's only a few shops that really were able to get to the tip fast. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think I think that the senior leadership teams at a number of those companies realized that there was an opportunity here. I think to move things quickly and set up an infrastructure inside those, a people infrastructure inside those companies, you have to have buy-in from the top. And I think that a number of those top leaders at those large brokerage firms realized that this data center space was
so new.
Yeah, so new. Every customer had a need in it somehow, and there's a conversation to be had. And so I think that the ones that got that faster were able to set up some things, and over time those have grown.
How were they getting educated though? Who was educating you on data centers? Who was educating the brokers?
Yeah, that's
what I'm saying.
It is Wild Wild West. I mean, there was no, I'd love to say there was
immersion.
Yeah.
You learn on the job.
Yes.
Someone talks to you about shit and you have to Google it, figure out what it means.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I'd love to say that, and that's not a shot at any company or anything. It's just how it was. And it shows you that, what's crazy is think of the amount of money that is being spent by these companies on this infrastructure. And that's how we're learning to help them as experience and kind of trial by fire. And our space still feels, our industry still feels young to me. Just some of the things we're experiencing, meaning, do you
remember when like 3 megawatts was a big deal?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the first deal I ever worked on at CBRE was a 4 megawatt deal that I had no idea what we were doing. But that was a really big IT infrastructure requirement for a company. Now there's groups that are turning away 4 meg deals, because
can you believe that?
It might compromise their ability to lease a whole building.
Yeah. So I couldn't believe that. But so that,
and here's another, hold on the our industry being young. This is the first time, in my opinion, on the leasing side, we have seen the rates go back up.
I heard you talk about that.
Yeah. It's podcast. like the people don't even know how to, how do you approach that with a customer that we have to say like, hey, this was the rate, 60 days ago, but interest rates have gone up X amount. And so the rate's going up,
Well, listen, I saw a OFCI sheet from one of the operators the other day that showed engines are beyond 60 weeks or 60 months right now.
Oh,
so I'm like, no, 60 weeks.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how do you wait 60 weeks for I mean, like the supply chain is so stressed that any limited amount of supply that's there today is at a premium now because it's the price equilibrium, supply and demand, but you generally have in some markets more pent up demand than you get supply chains to solve for. And the supply chain's not just limited on the widgets and equipment.
Yep.
I mean, that if you go, well, why is it limited to that? It's because they don't even have the labor to build the components that create the widget, right? So like, at the end of the day, I think we're staring down the barrel of a potential crisis with labor because we have the silver tsunami coming, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been in the industry?
Oh, now about 15 years.
Okay. So 48%, according to some reports, have been in the industry for more than 20, right?
Sure.
It's a lot of disparity between the people that have been around.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
And that's a lot of blue hairs that could be one day taking that wisdom with them.
Yeah. And I can't figure out, I think identifying the issues of why it's hard to bring people into our space, I know they're there, but we as an industry, I think, have to do a better job of showing the opportunities that are in the space. I was thinking the other day, if you want to get into the data center space, go learn about power. Figure out what areas will have more power than others in the future. You can make a lot of money. Go get into engineering. Go get into software development. There are so many paths. Go get into site selection, real estate site selection. There are so many paths and opportunities in our space, in my opinion. And I don't see them going away. When we talked about that 07, 08, 09 period, when the office market was crashing, basically, when the whole world was in a big challenge economically, the data center space was going like this. Now, granted, it was not as big as it is today, but our space has a lot of resiliency in the midst of the, turns of the economic world. And I think that this is one of those spaces that if you can find your way in, you probably won't ever leave. And I mean that in a good way.
I agree. Well, yeah, I would agree. On the most part, why would you? Because this is an emerging industry. Yeah. It's in its infancy. I tell people the greatest advantage of joining this industry is that there's a, here I am talking about labor and the silver tsunami, but there is a lot of value in having experience. 20 years of industry experience is of a great deal of value. Kinda. Right. I mean, the stress inoculation, the pressure testing, the learning how to overcome trials and tribulations that comes from the trauma of being somewhere for 20 years. But there's no way that we build data centers the same way today than we did a year ago, let alone 20.
Sure.
And it's not going to, what we're doing today is not what it's going to be in a year from now.
Yep.
So I tell people, look, validation is important, saying that you have industry experience, and it helps validate that there's other things that you can do or have done that contribute to having experience that, like, I could say that there's 3 characteristics that you do that are, it could be narcissist or psychopathic. And I could also say, but they're just also human nature. We all have those same things. So it depends, like, on what the perspective and how you look at things. I think that we have an advantage of this industry because you experience is only as good as the last few years, right? Because we have to reinvent ourselves so much, right? Think about how much. So, and I want to go back to you in 2007 through 9, but I do want to drag parts of that industry along with it because it ties together. Because I was getting my hands dirty around the same time, and I was at a different altitude and airspeed than you. You're up there, and the brokers they had their nose in the tent faster than everybody else. And if you look at where the broker was sitting close to the money, and then the ripple effects where they go through that iteration, then someone has a design set effort, and then someone has to build it, and then someone commissions it, and there's equipment. But that's a ripple effect. And I was so far away from where the decisions were being made. I was trying to analyze and interpret the market because I'm like, what are we doing? I just got done building this for HP, and now we're doing this, and it's something completely different. I'm like, is the soup not done cooking? What's going on? And I realized, like, it's even still not. I mean, even the language that we use to define the space isn't the same as it was when I first started in some cases.
That's true.
So, and again, I remember when I got in the space, you saw the brokers everywhere. They were omnipresent because they knew where the deals were coming in at before everybody else.
Yeah.
And I also think that because there were procurement teams at certain places that didn't really understand the requirements or let alone how to buy or procure or solve for it.
Yes.
Right. So they were just, in many ways, they were just outsourcing the risk to someone else in case it didn't go right. They'd be like, well, remember, we hired them. It was bad decision. But you know what I'm saying?
No, so right on.
Either way, they were getting more than their fair share of everything. And I remember in that time, not understanding how to view it from your optics, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, you were 3 years, and then what did you do from that point? Is that when you started Hawk?
No, I did CBRE from 2007 to 2014. About 2012 or 2013, I really started. We were trying to help clients with information, and which is a big part of the. If you're helping people make decisions from a real estate perspective on the data center side, the information that you have obviously guides that process. So. But it was really hard to get the data, and it was a really challenging thing just to even quantify market size. The basic info that an industrial broker, an office broker, a retail broker would have, or company would have to talk about the data center space, you kind of look around and go, I mean, we've got some stuff, but
they just treat it like IP or something?
And not the way that you would. There just wasn't the same maturity there, and there was also no third party that was out there going, hey, we don't, listen, we are pro-industry, want the industry to grow, but we're going to get judged by how well we can tell what's happening. That's our kind of litmus test of how we're doing. So, and not how many deals we do as it relates to real estate or anything like that. So I felt like there was a need to do that. There's a large commercial real estate website that different groups will use that didn't really track the space, the data center space, like we needed it to be tracked. So, they didn't talk about power. They didn't talk about rates like on a price per kW per month basis. They just didn't talk the language. And so that was really what I felt like the catalyst was to
You just saw the need.
Yeah, sure. I felt the need.
Yeah.
Because I realized that, hey, we don't have this. And if I had it, it'd be a lot better. And our clients would, find that it would be better as well.
So let's talk about that, because during that time, people just didn't know, right? I think a lot people just didn't understand how to interpret their own. The solutions were done in pockets, and very few people understood the big picture.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So when that was going on, what were you? By then, had you specialized yourself to just be data center CBRE guy? Okay.
Yeah, I was just doing data centers, and we were mostly helping groups with either, turnkey leases that they were trying to sign as a company, or like site selection. There were still groups that were trying to go and buy 50 acres and build. And actually it's funny because most of the site selection stuff I felt like at the time was actually getting less and less valuable. Like your expertise in site selection, 2012 through 2016 or 17 was, in my opinion, at its least valuable moment. Because
why?
Well, because not a lot of companies were doing it.
Until the data was out there already?
No, the data wasn't out there, but the companies that would oftentimes want you to do this didn't really have the infrastructure footprint to make it make sense. You'd get a bank that would go, hey, we need to go buy 150 acres. Okay. How much capacity do you want to put on it? 3 megawatts. You're like, what are we doing here? We're buying land that could support, 100, 200 megawatts that you're putting 3 on. And so at the end of the day, that wasn't what was driving the space. And also too, the brokerage world would get paid off of land sales getting done. And a lot of that land at the time was being purchased in rural markets where you can get land for $50,000 an acre, $100,000 an acre. So the deals weren't large enough to make it make sense to go do all that work.
Well, so before you created a solution for that, what was the homogenous Band-Aid that every shop just kind of had their own intel that they collected,
yes.
And did they share it amongst the?
No, and that's brokerage. That's not, if people are listening to this that, came out of the brokerage world or the real estate company world, it's this weird.
Dave hates brokers. They heard it.
Yeah. It's like this weird, you want to share data. You got to be careful what you share. And so I think that in order for our space to grow the way it needed to grow, there needed to be a solution that was third party, could be accessed 24/7, was thinking technologically and could change over time. Like that was another thing, is to be able to change a business model over time that I think DatacenterHawk gave us the ability to do. And that was the desire to really, start it.
So what, 2014 you said?
Yeah, 2014.
Okay, so you seem really excited about, So tell me the genesis. You're laying in bed one night, coming home from CBRE meetings, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go build my own thing. And your missus says you could do it. How does it work?
Yeah, not like that.
You've been kicking this around for a couple of years, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I had thought about it for a while. In fact, I told someone the other day, I'm like, I think if you start something and you believe in it, once you get into it, one of the things you think about is I should have done it earlier. I wish I'd done it earlier. I wish I'd done it 1-2 years earlier. And it takes a while to get things set to go. But I just felt like, I never saw myself as like a career. I started off at a faith-based sports camp for my career. So when I think about my career, I don't think about some illustrious 40-year, at the same company or doing this. I'm trying to I've done 3 things since college, and each one has been trying to help solve a problem. And so
purpose driven.
Yeah. And so for me to it was very hard to leave the company I was with because I liked the people I worked with. I respected the way our organization was going about helping people. But I felt like there was an opportunity. So the fear for me came in, would it be successful or not? Not necessarily.
Yeah. So how did you come around on that? Because I'm like, how did you know that people would want to do this?
Yeah.
How did you know that there was a need for it?
Yeah, I think,
Did all the brokers when you guys?
No, not at all. No one wanted. No. Yeah, no one wanted to do it when we started.
So how would they?
I just think it was. Yeah, I just think it was the need. I knew the need was there, and I thought over time, hey, if I do this long enough and I just don't quit, like eventually I can try to win people over, and I think that happened the
understanding the need though, then you had to create a model for it.
Sure.
Right? So that's like a pretzel in the brain, right? I'm sure
but the model existed in other real estate asset classes.
It did.
And so that was easy. So that was a good comp for me to be able to look at and go, hey, if they're doing it this way with this type of real estate, would it also work
you
this
just
way?
apply to different applications.
Yes. So I think once I got over hey, what's the worst thing that can happen? I don't know, this doesn't work, and I'll figure out something else to do.
Go work as easy.
Yeah. I was like, I'm fine. So once I got over that, it was like, let's go. And when we started, it was August 26th, 2014. And it was go time. And
okay, so did you incubate this, I'm sure, for a little bit? Like you had your Hawk name and you kind of knew. So this was, did you work on it in parallel with
No, it took about, I didn't do, I did some planning work, but no like software development, nothing until literally the first Monday that I resigned, had 2 weeks, and then ended on Friday, started on Monday.
But what was the objective? Why did you start it?
Yeah, the objective was to help people in the data center space make better, faster decisions with data.
Was it targeted more on operators or enterprise? Brokers?
Yeah, it made sense to the operators because they have such especially if you have like a portfolio across the country or globally, you're trying to understand so many different areas. So that's easy. That the need is easy. And then on the brokerage side, I always said like, hey, you've only got so much brain capacity. You can be an expert in Dallas and Chicago and Phoenix, but while you're spending all your time here, Northern Virginia,
you're not becoming an expert in everything else. Yeah.
So that use.
You were trying to aggregate all the expertise.
Yeah, and also too, I was going, hey, I'm not competitive from a deal side of things. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to give you the information that you need to go make it easier for you to help.
Did you know most of your first clients already?
Yes.
Okay, so you kind of, not like pocket clients, but you kind of knew like, hey, there's some pent up demand here.
Yes.
If I do something and they find value in it, and it's worthy in terms of like, it is the accuracy. It's some media, you could be in the weather, you could be the weatherman and never be right. And people be like, they do fine. Sure. No one has any expectations, right? So that you had to do right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And I think that, we spent about 9 months building the site and.
Oh, just like iteratively.
Yeah. It wasn't like on that Monday, we turned on datacenterHawk.com and it was, up and going. We had the planning.
Who was it? You, who? How many people?
Me.
Okay. So
I raised money to start it. And then we had basically like a consulting company help with the initial development as I was hiring my team. So it was me alone. And
you went out and raised capital to go start your own thing. And they're like, yeah, dude, there's podcast companies seem awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. No, yeah. Because we laugh. I didn't have, I don't know if you've gone back and looked at your business plan, but I go back and look at it and I was like, oh my gosh, like there's some things that I thought were totally right. And there's some things that I thought were totally wrong. One of the things that I didn't do was I had nothing in there about, how we would engage clients from a marketing perspective. We had some basic thoughts. So the podcast and the video stuff that we've done has all been kind of like on the fly, figuring it out as we go.
Very educational.
And it's funny too, if you look back on our first podcast we did, or kind of video interview to where we are now. It's painful, some of the things that are in there, but
I'm in those early stages right now myself. So I can't listen to some. I'm like, God, shut the fuck up.
Well, no, I just think, but I think the fact that it's there and you can go see it and see how far we've come, it's really fun. It's really encouraging. And that to me is like, that is what we have done. We have just tried to get incrementally better over time. Yeah. And, after a few years, you look around and you go, hey, there's still some things we're figuring out, but we've made some progress, and you head down again and keep going and same thing.
So when you did this, what did you know? What did you know that you had to hire for? You had to analysts to go chase down content and do research.
A lot of it was around building the data sets. We specialize in data, analyzing data, getting it in, seeing what it tells us, putting it back on our site. All the data points on our website we have looked at. So our team has looked at, we've touched. So it's not just like we're scraping sites and dumping stuff on our site. Mm-hmm. This is a very we are focused on the information. So a lot of it was building those. So I hired some people to help do that. We hired some developers. And then over time, we just kind of grew our team, hired a sales director, hired a head of our marketing side of things, and we've grown it from there. And so it's been, there's a lot in between there, but it's been a fantastic process. Anyone that says they want to go start something and build it, you got to be ready for, get ready to get hit in the face and then figure out how to adjust. And that was a lot of, and I would say this about myself, I've always tried to figure out what I'm doing, how to get good at it. And then when you start something new, you have to have the humility to go, I'm not good at this. I don't know what I'm doing. How do I figure it out? And I still think I'm in that, phase, but that process,
syndrome.
Yeah, that teaches you a lot about yourself.
You gotta stay hungry.
Yeah.
You gotta
resilient.
be scared. Yeah, look, the threat of fall, of maybe being outflanked, I guess, in some ways, right? Because we live in a world that's a jungle, and there's someone now that probably tries to do what you do,
sure.
And they try to repeat the model, right? So there's always somebody that's hungry with a chip on their shoulder and a little bit of that grit, and they were just born a few years after you.
Sure.
But you didn't even know they were there, but you've had a bullseye on your back the whole time.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to wake up hungry, right?
That's right.
So for you though, when you started, how many people did you have, by the way?
Well, when we started, it was just me, and then I think
you started, like, how many people do you have now? How about now?
There's like 20-ish of us now. We were acquired in July.
No kidding.
Last year, yeah. And so
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, and we're in I would say a bit of a growth phase. So we're adding people internationally, which is really fun. So I think we'll have a really interesting story from a platform growth perspective and a people growth perspective. If you look at our company in the next 3 years, I think we'll be completely different.
So what's the purpose behind all of this?
I think for me, the purpose was I saw a problem. I wanted to create something that was helpful. So one was to prove we could do it. Cause there were people that when I started, were pretty, I wouldn't say negative to the idea, but honest with me about it. And I appreciated that, to be honest. And some that were maybe too honest. But I know who those people are. And I appreciated the fact that they were that way because, to be honest, I think it helped me and inside go, I'm going to come back one day and be able to say, hey, look what we did. And so I think that, but more importantly for that, it's just to create a place where I think our team can grow. I brought people into this industry. Probably 15 to 16 people that didn't know what a data center was. And I'm really proud of that.
That is awesome.
And I know you have too. It's like when you can bring people into this space and they can find a place and kind of see the opportunities and they're going, oh my gosh, yes, I see, like, this industry is growing.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And there's the existential threat is labor right now. So they want you.
Yeah.
And there's value in what you bring.
So that's that. I'm really proud of that. We have
that's good.
Fantastic culture at our company. I think we have
headquarters in Dallas still?
Yeah. I'd put our, fun level up, against anyone. I think we do a ton of stuff that I hope our team, I think they love to come to work, love to get after the data. Our leadership team, we try and represent our core values better than anyone. And I'm like, if we can't do that, we shouldn't expect you to do it. So
can't lead others if you can't lead yourself.
Man. So it's, and that's been, to be honest, that's been the best part of it.